Bisola Adeyemi was a star in her own right. Born in the heart of Lagos State, her beauty was captivating, but her true charm lay in her determination and intelligence. Life hadn't always been easy, but Bisola knew how to work hard and persevere. At 16, she left Lagos to live with her aunt in Anambra State, where she completed her education with exceptional grades. Her journey into nursing was no accident. Bisola was passionate about helping others, and she poured her heart into her studies. By the time she graduated, she had earned a first-class degree, setting her apart from her peers. At 22, Bisola returned to Lagos, brimming with hope and excitement about her future. She secured a job at a prestigious hospital in the city and quickly made a name for herself as a compassionate and skilled nurse. Her life seemed to be heading in the right direction until the day she met Tobi. It was an ordinary morning when Tobi's flashy black car pulled up beside her on her way to work. The man behind the wheel was everything society deemed desirable: handsome, confident, and wealthy. "Excuse me, beautiful," he called out with a dazzling smile. Bisola hesitated, but eventually stopped. Tobi's charisma was hard to ignore, and within minutes, he had charmed her into giving him her number. Their relationship took off quickly. Tobi wasn't just attentive, he was extravagant. In a matter of weeks, he spoiled Bisola with expensive gifts, designer handbags, luxury jewelry, and even a car. He took her to the finest restaurants, made her feel like royalty, and promised her the world. Bisola's best friend, Chidima, was ecstatic for her. "Girl, you've hit the jackpot. Tobi is a keeper," she said during one of their frequent chats. For a while, Bisola believed it too. Tobi seemed perfect, and she began to imagine a future with him. But not everything was as it seemed. Tobi had a habit of disappearing at night, rarely answering her calls or texts. "Work," he would say dismissively, but the excuses started piling up. Bisola also noticed how guarded he was about his home. Whenever she suggested visiting, he found a way to avoid it. These red flags gnawed at her, but she chose to push her doubts aside. After all, his friends constantly referred to her as Iowa, our wife, which reassured her that their relationship was heading towards something serious. The truth began unraveling one evening at a party hosted by Tobi's friends. Bisola arrived, looking stunning in a dress Tobi had bought her. The evening started beautifully, with his friends teasing her as usual. "Iowa, you're glowing," one of them said, making Bisola blush. She was starting to believe that Tobi was the one. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. A distressed woman burst into the room, her voice trembling with anger and sorrow. "Tobi, after everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me," she cried. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Tobi, who remained seated, his face a mask of indifference. Bisola's heart raced as the woman's words sank in. She turned to Tobi, searching for an explanation. "She's just someone trying to make trouble," he said coldly, signaling security to remove the woman. "Don't worry about her." But Bisola couldn't shake the unease. She wanted to believe Tobi, but her instincts told her there was more to the story. A few weeks later, Bisola began feeling unwell. After taking a pregnancy test, she stared at the positive result in disbelief and joy. She couldn't wait to share the news with Tobi, hoping it would bring them closer. She planned a special dinner to tell him. That evening, as they sat in a luxurious restaurant, Tobi held her hand. "You said you had news?" he asked, his voice warm. Bisola smiled, her heart pounding with excitement. "Tobi, I'm pregnant," she announced. For a moment, he froze. Then his hand slipped away from hers, and his expression darkened. "Pregnant? For me?" he asked, his voice cold and distant. Bisola's heart sank. "Yes, Tobi. We're going to have a baby." Instead of joy, Tobi's face twisted into frustration. "No, Bisola. This isn't the right time. You need to terminate it." His words hit her like a punch to the stomach. Before she could respond, a familiar voice erupted from behind her. "Leave my husband alone." Bisola turned to see the woman from the party charging toward her. Chaos ensued as the woman grabbed Bisola, yelling accusations and threats. "You girls need to stay away from him. He's mine." Tobi bolted from the scene, leaving his friends to intervene. Bisola, shaken and humiliated, could only watch as the truth unraveled before her eyes. Tobi was married, and she had been nothing more than a pawn in his deceitful game. Bisola was heartbroken, her spirit shattered into pieces. She stumbled to Chittima's house, her torn clothes clinging to her trembling body. As soon as Chittima opened the door and saw her friend's tear-streaked face, she rushed to hold her, but Bisola collapsed into her arms, fainting from the sheer weight of her emotions. For weeks, Bisola struggled to eat or drink. Her once vibrant personality faded into a shell of despair. The emotional turmoil of deciding whether to keep her unborn child gnawed at her daily. Chittima, her ever-loyal friend, sat beside her one night, gently asking, "Bisola, can you handle being a single mother? Will you be okay?" Bisola looked lost, her eyes hollow and vacant. She felt hopeless, abandoned by love, and unsure of her future. But deep within her, a flicker of strength began to rise. She thought about the tiny life growing within her, and despite the pain, she resolved to keep the baby. "I'll protect and provide for this child," she said softly. "I'll be everything they need." 9 months later, Bisola gave birth to a beautiful baby girl she named Adebisi. The first time she held her, tears of joy streamed down her face. Adebisi's bright, curious eyes and innocent smile became a balm for her wounded soul. Every giggle and coo from her daughter brought Bisola peace and happiness. Adebisi became the light in her life, her reason to keep moving forward. Bisola devoted herself to raising Adebisi and excelling at her nursing career. She swore off men entirely, determined never to let anyone break her heart again. But life had its surprises. One afternoon at work, a man named Ibuka was admitted for malaria treatment. The nurses struggled to find a vein for his 4 cannula. When Bisola arrived for her shift, the task was handed over to her. With calm precision, she found the vein in under a minute and began the treatment. Ibuka, impressed by her skill and gentle care, couldn't help but ask for her number. Bisola refused firmly, brushing off his charm. Over the next few days, Ibuka couldn't get Bisola out of his mind. Determined to see her again, he returned to the hospital, pretending to be unwell. This time, he insisted that only Bisola could attend to him. The nurses laughed but told him she was on the night shift. Undeterred, Ibuka waited until her shift began. Once again, Bisola refused to give him her number, but his persistence didn't waver. He sent flowers and gifts, all of which she rejected. One of her colleagues teased her, saying, "Why not give this man a chance? He's obviously smitten with you." Bisola shook her head. "That's how they all act, until they get what they want." The drama continued for weeks until one day, Bisola arrived at work feeling unwell. When she saw Ibuka again, frustration boiled over, and she publicly berated him in front of everyone. But as the words left her lips, she suddenly collapsed. Panic erupted. Without hesitation, Ibuka rushed to her side, scooping her up and carrying her to the emergency room. Despite the nurse's protests, Ibuka refused to leave Bisola's side. He stayed, ensuring she was comfortable until Chittima arrived with Adebisi. When Chittima saw how concerned Ibuka was, they struck up a conversation. For the first time, Ibuka learned about Adebisi, and it only deepened his admiration for Bisola. When Bisola finally woke up with a pounding headache, her eyes landed on Ibuka. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice weak but laced with irritation. Chittima stepped in to explain everything. How Ibuka had carried her, stayed with her, and even bonded with Adebisi. The next day, Ibuka visited Bisola at home, bringing thoughtful gifts for both her and Adebisi. To Bisola's surprise, Adebisi took an instant liking to him, calling him Uncle Ibuka and giggling at his jokes. Over time, Ibuka's kindness and persistence began to chip away at Bisola's walls. He treated Adebisi like his own daughter, and his actions spoke louder than any promises. Gradually, Bisola allowed herself to open up. She and Ibuka went on a few dates, and she found herself enjoying his company more than she expected. One evening, she shared her fears with him, the heartbreak she endured and her vow never to trust a man again. Ibuka took her hands in his. Bisola, I'm not here to hurt you. I love you and Adebisi with all my heart. I promise to protect you, cherish you, and never let you down. Months later, Ibuka proposed, promising to be the husband and father Bisola and Adebisi deserved. With tears of joy, Bisola accepted, finally allowing herself to believe in love again. Together, they built a beautiful life filled with laughter, love, and healing, a testament to the power of resilience and the possibility of finding happiness after heartbreak.